Her hair fell over her shoulders, and her face was adorned with paints. With pink blush on her cheeks and a small star drawn on her forehead, little Emily looked adorable with her fairy wings. She ran and hugged her father, saying, "Daddy, come on, my cake is ready, time to blow out the candles." She was turning 10 years old. Her favorite school friends and their families, along with Ethan's closest friends, Daniel and Marcus, were all there for the birthday with their gifts. Emily stood behind the cake on the table, excitedly watching the candles burn. Her mother, Laura, carefully lit the candles. Ethan was happy, watching them. At that moment, he caught Laura looking not at him, but in another direction. It was the first time he wondered where she was looking. Emily was gathered at the head of the cake with her older brother Noah and her friends. Ethan felt something was happening, but he could not turn his head to understand where Laura was looking. The moment Emily blew out the candles, an alarm sounded. Ethan opened his eyes. He slowly removed the silver-colored, metallic, ring-shaped device from his head and placed it on the side table. Ethan's hair had partially thinned. His face and hands were wrinkled. He was no longer as active and vigorous as he used to be. He was 73 years old. His memory was slowing down. His memories of his one true love, Laura, and his children were slowly starting to fade from his mind. This situation was consuming him from the inside. He had lost Laura far too early. A traffic accident had separated them. Although he struggled while raising his son Noah and daughter Emily alone, he was a strong father who managed to overcome it. But now they had established their own lives. Although Emily tried to visit her father once a month, it was very good for Ethan if his son Noah came once every 3 months. Ethan had become lonely. That was until he went for a walk in the park near his house on Maplewood Avenue. He saw an advertisement on a billboard. "Your memories are now with you forever. Don't be late to book an appointment." Is this possible? He thought. When he returned home, there was only one thing on his mind: the poster. He picked up the phone, his hands trembling with excitement. "Eidolon Memory Clinic. Hello. For an appointment," he could say, his voice shaking. The woman on the other end said, "Your appointment is ready for 2 days from now at 2 o'clock. Can you tell me your name?" "Ethan. Ethan Caldwell." "All right, Mr. Ethan. Please do not be late for your appointment." When the appointment day came, Ethan put on his most stylish suit and left his house with excitement. His knees were trembling as he entered the clinic. This place had perhaps the world's highest-tech research laboratory, working on memory and virtual reality. And after years of work, they had succeeded in copying memory and uploading it to servers. The assistant took Ethan into Dr. John's office. John began, "We can now copy your entire memory and offer it to you on our servers. However, there are some precautions that need to be taken. First, you can only use it for 30 minutes daily. More than that can disrupt your brain functions and put you in a vegetative state. Therefore, the device will warn you when the time is up and the system will shut down automatically. The device must not be used again before 24 hours have passed. The second issue is our fee. Our memory copying fee is $200,000, and afterward, there is an annual server fee of $30,000. Ethan's face had fallen when he heard the fee, just as he thought everything was going well. He had to give up all his savings in the bank that he had set aside for bad situations in his old age. The doctor looked at Ethan with a questioning gaze. "I want to start immediately," he said firmly and clearly. Early Monday morning, they took Ethan into a room. A large white device covered almost the entire room. The nurse laid Ethan on the stretcher and attached 6 tapes with cables at the ends to his head. After preparing the syringe and the medicine from the side table, she turned to Ethan. "Sir, this process will take a bit long, so do not get up from your place without receiving an instruction from us." She injected the needle into Ethan's arm and sent the stretcher into the large device. Ethan lay half-conscious under the influence of the medicine. When the device started working with a hum, bright-colored lights were flashing around him. For a moment, his childhood, which he could no longer remember, began to flow before his eyes. It was like fast-forwarding a movie you didn't like, but the system progressed in a confused way. One moment he was going to his youth, and the next he found himself in his childhood. In a semi-conscious state, all his memories were being pulled into the clinic's servers. Even his infancy was emerging from the deepest points of his brain. When the process was finished, 8 hours had passed. The nurse slowly removed Ethan from the device. He was still under the influence of the medicine and his brain was very tired. With the nurse's support, he sat in the ready wheelchair. He remained under observation in the hospital for a day. When the doctor entered his room for the final examination, he had a box in his hand. He carefully opened the box and took out a silver metallic ring. "Mr. Ethan, you will reach virtual reality with this device. It is enough to place this device on your head and activate it by pressing this button you see. When your time is up, the system will close, and you can remove the device from your head afterward." He was very excited when he returned home. He wanted to see his loved ones as soon as possible. He settled into his usual chair in the living room. Gently opening the box, he took out the ring, placed it on his head, and pressed the button. At that moment, his eyes glazed over. He stood without moving, as if he had entered a trance. This was the day they first went out with Laura. He was living those moments, which he thought had long been erased from his memory, through his own eyes again. Laura was looking at him with her brown eyes. It was so real that he wanted to get up and hug his wife sitting across from him, but he could not move. He was only reliving that moment. He had returned to exactly 50 years ago. His heart was aching to touch Laura, but he could not manage to move even a finger. Whatever movement he had made at that moment, his body repeated it. Whatever he had said, those words came out of his mouth. He understood that he now had to enjoy the moment. He could not intervene. He could only watch. And so he did. They were now walking to drop Laura off at her house. That moment came to his mind. The first time he kissed her. He got excited. He was going to kiss her while dropping her off at home in a little while. Suddenly, he began to hear the alarm sound and the system shut down. Ethan removed the device from his head with disappointment. He had to wait a day to see Laura again. He tried to find something to distract himself. He took the old photo album out of the drawer. He was trying to recall his beautiful days by examining each photo one by one. 2 weeks had passed, and Ethan had now grasped how to use the device. He could open his eyes at any time and go forward or backward from that moment as much as he wanted. He had even learned to freeze the moment. Most of the time, he filled his half hour by stopping the moments where Laura, Emily, and Noah were together and watching them. This was a miracle for him, but half an hour was not enough. He looked forward to the next day. He now had a great motivation to hold on to life. Half an hour with his family every day. The birthday scene would not leave his mind. He watched the same scene over and over again. Laura's love-filled gaze was not at him. Why did she have such a look for one of the guests? Since almost everyone was behind Ethan at that moment, he didn't know who it was. He spent a few days thinking about this. Ethan stops the same scene again. When he looks into Laura's eyes, he notices the image slowly enlarging. It is as if he has left his body and is approaching Laura. He stands right in front of Laura and looks into her eyes. He and the guests are in Laura's pupil. At that moment, his friends Daniel and Marcus are standing side by side behind him, but he wonders, which one? The idea of learning the truth would no longer leave his mind. Daniel and Marcus had died 1 year apart. There was no one alive he could learn the truth from, other than his own memory. This situation had now become paranoia. He wanted to learn the truth as soon as possible. He should not miss even the smallest detail in his memory. Every day he put the device on his head and searched for a small clue by fast-forwarding and stopping his memory for half an hour. Because of this feeling gnawing at him, he had started using the device before 24 hours were up. At first, the intervals fell to 23, then 22, and eventually down to 18 hours. As the duration shortened, he felt his brain getting more tired. His sleep duration had increased. 6 hours of sleep was no longer enough for him. He had even seen 11 hours. It was like a thirst for the truth. He could not help himself. Laura was talking on the phone in the garden, and Ethan had taken a beer from inside. At the moment he opened the cap of the beer, he saw Laura outside through the kitchen window. Her speech and gaze showed she was angry. Ethan fast-forwarded the scene. Now they were sitting together in the garden. "Who were you talking to, honey?" In a slight panic, she knocked over the glass on the table. "Oh, did you see what I did? I was just talking to Susan. She left her mother and went on vacation alone. Can you imagine?" When will this girl become responsible? Ethan knew it wasn't true. She was hiding something. He took the scene back. to that moment when he watched Laura through the window. He played it over and over again. The only thing he looked at was her lips. It can't happen anymore. Ethan needs to know the truth. I'm really exhausted. Yes, Laura was saying these things. He had woken up from a long sleep when he began to question what he was doing. He had a very happy marriage, 2 wonderful children. Was it worth ruining these beautiful memories for the rest of his life? He did not wear the device for 3 days. He felt more vigorous. Emily visited on the weekend, with her 8-year-old son, Tony. Emily knew her father's state of mind very well. She understood something was wrong in the first 15 minutes. Despite all her persistence, her father had not told his daughter a single word. Thinking that their mother was a bad person would hurt her deeply. Since he didn't even know the truth himself yet, he couldn't tell her about such a suspicion, and upset his daughter too. He played games with his grandson for a few hours, just living that moment without thinking about anything. Emily called out to Tony, saying, "Time to go." Ethan was watching their departure from the door. He knew it would be at least a month until the next visit. He silently waved after them. When he turned back inside, the silver-colored ring was on the side table. His eyes filled with tears. He slowly sat in his chair, put the device on his head, and there he was. He was wandering aimlessly in his memories. He found himself at work, chatting with his friends. Marcus was talking about a weekend getaway. Man, Silver Lake was amazing. The lake view, a wonderful woman, and unique wine. What more could a person want from this life? Daniel immediately joined in. Who is this lucky woman? When are you introducing her to us? Marcus gave Ethan a fleeting glance and took a sip of his coffee. Soon, my friend, very soon, he smiled. At that moment, if he could have, he would have jumped on Marcus, but he couldn't. He could only watch, and in a state full of anger, over and over again, he thought he was sure now it must have been Marcus. He felt as if his whole life had been built on a lie, but he still didn't know the truth. Was it really Marcus, or was this just his thought? He had now started spending more time in his memory. Daily durations shortened again. Sleep durations had increased. He wasn't aware of it yet, but these journeys were consuming the memories in his brain faster. He thought about Laura's accident. Silver Lake was exactly in the opposite direction of the road where the accident happened. He had never thought about it until then. Where was Laura returning from? Forensic medicine had also detected alcohol in her blood. Ethan removed the device and opened the map on the computer. He began to follow the road where the accident occurred on the map. The only place he found there was Golden Shore Villas. I wonder, he thought. He immediately returned to the scene where Marcus talked about his vacation. He had never continued to the remaining part. Daniel took a sip of his coffee and said, My favorite is Golden Shore. Quiet and far from everyone. Very few people know it. A complete hidden paradise. At that moment, lightning was flashing in Ethan's brain. It shouldn't have been his favorite friend Daniel. That day, Daniel and Laura had met at Golden Shore. Laura was crying while telling Daniel that she no longer wanted to continue this relationship. I love Ethan very much, and he doesn't deserve this. He always loved me and his children very much. After listening to Laura calmly, Daniel put the whiskey in his hand on the table and hugged Laura. You can't leave me, or else Ethan will learn everything, more than just our relationship. Emily, no, you can't do this. She is still very small. She loves Ethan very much. Daniel didn't care. All he wanted was for the thing that had been going on for years not to end. After Laura spent that day with Daniel, she got into her car. She shouldn't have gone on the road after 4 glasses of whiskey, but she didn't care. She got into her car and just wanted to return to her home, to her children. That day was Laura's last day. The truck coming from the opposite lane had made the vehicle almost unrecognizable. Ethan now knew who he was. While tears were streaming from his eyes, he put the ring on his head again. Laura, Emily, and Noah were all having a picnic together. Ethan looked at Laura while lighting the grill. He noticed for a moment that he could move. Without even hesitating, he ran and hugged them. The sun never set. It didn't even seem to move. Ethan was surprised that the alarm sound had not come for a long time and that the system had not closed. Then he looked at his family and saw how happy they were. Now the reality ring had also left his mind. Emily had come to visit her father again. When she saw that the door did not open, she took out her key with fear and opened the door. Her father was sitting across from her. His eyes were closed, a silver ring on his head. She gently removed the ring. "Daddy, Daddy," she called out, but Ethan was in a deep sleep. He lived in a vegetative state, bedridden for exactly 2 years. Or that was what people saw. Yet Ethan was still in that day they had the picnic,